One of the main pillars and aspects of being a man is your finances, right? Making sure that these are in order. Reason being is because with a man, typically you're looked at to provide. You're looked at to make sure that you are well off and you're able to go ahead and take care of your kids, your family, your spouse, um, and just yourself. You want to be looked at as somebody who is going to be able to go ahead and sustain wealth, right? And it doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire, right? But it starts off with just different habits to go to make sure that you can handle money well. Because as we all know, money, it's not the main thing in life, but if you have money, you know how to handle it, it makes everything so much easier. So we want to go to make sure that we're able to go ahead and pass this knowledge on. There's a video that I found that I really want to go ahead and share with y'all. But as far as with finances, do you have anything that you want to share, Sal, as far as like why it's important?
I mean, we think it's important because there's a you could look at it multiple ways, right? You could you know, be good with money or basically you're bad with money, right? So money's a tool to use, right? You can use it for good, you can use it for bad, you could use it to, take vacations, you can use it to, to gamble away or shop or whatever, right? But it's important to be able to manage it properly, to be able to set yourself up for success financially, to be prepared because when you're not prepared, people tend to get into debt and stuff like that. And we're going to get into that a little more, but just, those are what we think is important. And so I think it's an important pillar as a man to be able to understand money finances.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And, with you saying that, it reminded me of something. But money is just a multiplier, right? It just makes you more of who you are and it makes things, honestly, in life easier because it opens doors. It allows you to do things that you really want to do, right? So I completely agree with you. There was this one video actually that I found, and I'm going to put it in the description below. But it's about this accountant, this female accountant, and she explains, well, the title of the video is Accountant Explains Money Habits Keeping You Poor. And it's very, very good. It goes over the basics as far as what you should do and how you should really handle your money. Now, keep this in mind. I know that, hey, you know what? You make your money, you do whatever you want with it, right? But I will go ahead and tell you that if you want to level up, if you want to become better, if you want to learn how to handle it well, I would definitely suggest this video just to start off. Just like anything, there's steps, right? There's steps to these things. And I think that this is a great first step to really look at because what you want to do is you want to reflect and compare this to yourself. What am I doing with my money? How am I handling my money? How has my money helped me? If you notice that your money is not a multiplier for you, it doesn't make you better, doesn't give you access or open doors, then you're probably using it wrong. And I think that's very important. So like there's a few things that she talks about here. A few tips, right? And I'm just going to go over them real quick, not in full detail, because of course, again, go watch the video, check her out, make sure you support her as well for putting out this great content. One of the things is paying yourself last. So as far as with that, she's talking more about like a business, but honestly, just in everyday life, you want to make sure that whenever you get that paycheck coming in, that you're putting in a little bit aside for yourself first. Reason being is because you want to make sure that with your finances, you have something to go ahead and make sure you know where all your money is going, right? And if you go ahead and set aside that first bit as soon as you get your check in, then you'll know, hey, I have X amount of dollars left to go ahead and budget. It's going to make you spend a lot less on things that you really don't need because your income's a little bit less. But that money that you're saving is going to go towards something else that we're going to talk about in a little bit here. So making sure that you pay yourself first, making sure that you have that money in reserve. One of the other things is bad debt. Making sure that, if you have any type of bad debt, which is going to be like a credit cards, any payments that shouldn't be going out, that you owe somebody money, you want to get rid of that, right? You want to make sure that you don't have that. And as Sal, I'm pretty sure is going to talk about in a moment, one of the biggest things is your income is what's going to multiply you the most, or your biggest multiplier. So getting rid of that bad debt is going to help you have a bigger income, right? Having a buffer. So this is kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, if you pay yourself, you make sure that you put that money aside, you're going to have that buffer if something comes around, right? If there's any type of medical expenses that come up, if for whatever reason you have, let's say, vehicle trouble, you need to fix your vehicle, any type of emergency, you want to make sure that you have something in place and prepared to go and help you out with that. Knock on wood, but if there's any type of serious family event that goes on, having that money will just help you. It'll help you take time off of work. It'll help you go ahead and put some money towards finances for the situation that's going on. So again, it just helps you to multiplier. Not really knowing your income and expenses. This is a big one. And I will tell you that Sal is like really good at this. And it's like having a sheet, you know what I mean? A spreadsheet, and just making sure that you write everything down, or you download an app that helps you out. I know that's what I do. I know that's what Sal does as well. There's many different ways that you could do this. Whatever helps you is the best. And even if you have multiple different ways to do this, it's even better. Just to make sure that you're triple checking yourself. But again, knowing how much you actually have coming in, how much you have going out. I can guarantee you, once you write this down and you actually see it in front of you, you're going to be like, what the like, why do I have all this stuff going on? I didn't even realize I was paying towards this. Like, wow. And you start measuring it like every month, every year, how much you're actually paying towards stuff that you probably don't use. Like, let's just say that a streaming service that you haven't used all year, you know what I mean? You only use it to binge a show one time. You want to make sure you get rid of that, right? So you can go ahead and maximize your income, use that for other things. Expensive hobbies. This is something a lot of people, I believe, don't realize that when you have these hobbies that really don't level you up, they don't help you towards either more money or knowledge or anything like that. It's more of a distraction. And guess what? If you don't have the money for it, if you're not at that level yet, honestly, just don't get into it. You know what I mean? Use that money to go ahead and help you make more money, or get more time, or whatever it is. Invest in yourself. And believe me, later on in life, as long as you do this, you're going to have the money to do this. And it's not going to be an expensive hobby anymore. It's going to be within your budget. So make sure you're cutting those things out until you're ready. There's a few other things really, like savings and taxes, that kind of like roll into everything here. Taxes, I'm not going to mention too much on this just because I'm not anybody as far as like tax attorney or anything like that, or anything doing with taxes. And also, I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction, but I will say that for you to have your own knowledge and find a good tax person who has the knowledge, somebody you trust, because again, this goes into your income, right? Where is your money going? Knowing where your income is actually going. The last two, kind of put these together here. So the first one is waiting too long to invest. It's never too early to invest. There's never a point where, hey, I don't make enough money to invest. As long as you handle your finances, as long as you write everything down and you have a budget, if it's $5 a month, whatever it is, $50 a month, whatever you can afford, putting that little bit into an investment. Keep in mind, this is like a slow cooker. Okay. You're putting a little bit into there and it's slowly going to be growing and growing and growing. And as long as you just start, as long as you put in that first step to start to contribute to that, do it. Because the later you do it, remember, it's a slow cooker, the longer it's going to take. Even if this is a 401k, a Roth, whatever it is, just do it. And then of course, last thing is just not caring. A lot of people, they get their paycheck, and the reason why they're living paycheck to paycheck is because they don't care about their money. They're not understanding where it's going. So first off, watching this video is the first step, right? Actually caring, wanting to gather a little bit more knowledge in what to do with your money and how to handle money better. So really, those are kind of just the first steps. Again, check out her video. It's really, really good. But, just having your finances straight is it's definitely a pillar of being a man. Make sure that you get together and make sure that you just understand your finances. Get the knowledge to do so.
I agree, man. After watching this video, I like this video because it's short, it's to the point, but it also has like these are all key things to have if you want to get a hold of your finances, right? You know, as you mentioned, she goes over paying yourself. People that pay yourself last, that's not good. You need to pay yourself first, right? And there was a book I read that was called Automatic Millionaire. And what he talks about is, hey, you know what? Automatically having payments get sent to an account, right? To your IRA or whatever it may be, your investment account. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to do that with your company, hey, do it automatically, right? Boom. So like the way I have it set up is they automatically take out money from my check into my investment account, my 401k, right? So I'm paying myself first every time, no matter what. Hey, putting that money aside, putting that money aside. If you don't have that option, try to get something set up to be able to do that automatically, maybe the same day or the day after you get paid, right? So boom, automatic. Paying yourself first, I think that's really important, right? I want to go over too much because I know Richard hit a lot of it, but we're gonna hit it all too. So she talks about bad debt, right? What is bad debt? Bad debt would be something that's not making you money, right? So if you have this credit card payment, I racked up this credit card payment, that's bad debt, right? Because now you're having to pay someone else money because you're using their money. And the way I also see it is now you're not working for yourself, right? You're working to pay off that card, or you're working to pay off that vehicle, or you're working to pay off that vacation, or whatever it was, right? So when you have those bad debt, you're not working for yourself, right? You know, for example of a good debt would be potentially, property or something like that that has the potential to go up in value. So those are really like the only exceptions that we would say that would be a good debt, quote unquote good debt. And the disclaimer for this video is that this is not financial advice. So we gotta put that disclaimer in there, right? This isn't
Great point.
financial advice, you know, but this is what we think. This is our opinions, kind of what we've learned, and what we think is important as far as being, handling your finances to be a pillar for men, right? She goes over having a buffer savings as well, right? Which is important because, you know, they say one day it's going to rain. And you got to have that rainy day fund, right? You got to have that umbrella to be able to protect yourself. So, and a lot of people will say, oh, that's not happening to me. It's not going to happen to me. But the reality is, once you start working, you got, 40 years, that you're going to be working, and that's a long time to not have an emergency. So, unfortunately, it's likely that people will run into some type of emergency, throughout this 40-year life that you're working in. I think those are important things to have, right? Being prepared for these things. She also like not knowing what as Rich said, not really knowing what's going on in your finances. That's huge. I mean, there's been, when I was young in college, I didn't make a lot of money, but I thought we made decent money for college and kid, right? I didn't work crazy hours, but I remember one year I was looking like, man, I made this much money last year on my, W-2. I'm like, man, where did all my money go to? And it's like, you got to be able to, know where your money's going, know what happened. Nowadays, if you ask me, hey, where'd all your money go last year? Like, all right, well, let's go look. Have it all written down. I did, what did I spend my money on? And even if you disagree with how I spent my money, I could say like, I understand it. I know what's happening. I think that's a huge step. Being comfortable with money, being able to look at it and stuff like that. Like Richard said, there's so many different tools now, and you could do spreadsheets, you could do apps, you could do like there's so much out there, right? And a lot of times too, your bank may give you like a rundown. Hey, this is what you spend your money on, which is looking at that is important, and that's part of being the first step, right? She also goes over like hobbies, savings, taxes, all that stuff is important, right? And what I will say is like if you have some hobbies that may be expensive or maybe like, hey, like I really like doing this, it's a little expensive, but find ways to cut it, right? Find ways to reduce it. Like if you like I like fishing, right? So fishing can be expensive sometimes if I want to buy new gear or stuff like that, or I have a kayak. If I want to do new stuff to the kayak, like that could be expensive. But it's like, all right, maybe I look up used stuff, or maybe I sell some of the stuff I don't have to pay for some new fishing gear or whatever it may be, right? Like sometimes you have to, but sometimes you do have to get rid of it. You got to make that mature decision to say, you know what, this has just been a drain on my account. Like, maybe it's shopping, maybe it's this. It could be a lot of things. And I think understanding that, and especially if you're not in that situation yet, and maybe that's a goal you strive for as a finance, right? You know what? Let me find little ways to make some cash or whatever it may be to supply for your hobby. So as mentioned before, savings, taxes, being able to save for upcoming expenses or being able to save for big purchases, vehicles, houses, things like that. I think those are pretty important. And taxes are huge, man, because like you said, those one of the biggest things we pay, throughout our life. And talk to someone professionally, or do your research and figure out ways to minimize that. Those are important. Thing two, the second to last one, right? Waiting too long to invest. No one's ever going to come and tell you, what everyone's going to tell you. They're going to say, I wish I started earlier, right? That's definitely what I would say, right? When I was working in college and, making not that much money part time, I wish I would have put something aside, even if it was $50 a month or something small like that. Like, if I would have started that, 4 years earlier, that could grow, right? There's something called compound interest, where basically quick rundown of that since I mentioned it, but you have like let's say $1,000 in one year. Let's say it grew $100, right? 10%. Next year, you're making money off of $1,100, not just your thousand, right? Your $100 that you made money is now making you money as well. And that it'll just, like I said, compound, grow every year. So that's basically what compound interest is, right? Like now you're making money on your money. So that's important. Once you start earlier, you get that compound interest benefits. You get it's just so much better. I don't think anyone will ever come to retirement and be like, oh, I saved too much money. I've got too much hundreds of thousands of dollars saved. Now I'm sure no one's really going to say that. So start earlier is definitely there. So getting yourself prepared, being prepared financially to be able to start early is important. So this was really a good video. And like I said, should also go last one, not caring, right? So if you don't care about your finances, like, oh, that's just, people want to say like, oh, it's just nothing I worry about, or like, I don't want to worry about it. It's only live once. I just gotta live. I gotta live. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's important. And people always tell me too, like what I used to hear all the time, because I was like huge into finances, right? Like, oh, what happens if you don't, you don't live, like you die next year or die tomorrow? But it's like, if you have like, if there's a legit reason to think that, maybe, but like I don't have a legit reason to think I'm gonna die next year. So I want to set myself up successfully, right? I don't want to just, that's like saying, oh, I'm gonna go get $1 million loan out because I could die next year, but there's no probable cause to believe that. So why would I take that risk, right? You're taking that risk. So, a lot of people will say it all the time, but finances are important, man. This is, you work to earn money. If you just squander that away, I mean, you're not gonna have a successful life overall, right? It causes more stress, causes marital problems. It causes, people do dumb things, right? When they're desperate, right? Some people like will thief, do robbery, or do stuff like that. So like being able to be financially successful, financially in a good place is important, right? It lifts stress off you as a person. It'll lift stress off your spouse if you're married. Um, I mentioned to my wife one time, I kind of like really, I'm the finance guy to my relationship. So I remember recently I asked my wife, I'm like, when's the last time you had to think like, oh, let me check my bank account to see if I have enough money? And now I'm not trying to like brag or anything. Like we make good money for a couple, but it's not crazy. But it's like, it's just because we have control over our finances and because we are, we follow a plan, a budget, and all that. So this is why I think it's important. I think that's why we put it as a pillar, being a good man, being able to understand the finances and all that. And if you're married, maybe your spouse is the person that likes, hey, they're a numbers person, they like to do that stuff. Hey, that's okay. But you as a man still need to be involved. You still need to understand. You still need to be there, because you don't want, what you don't want to happen is maybe she's not doing a good job, or maybe she doesn't quite understand certain stuff, and you don't want it to be down the road to say like, now you're blaming your spouse because you're bad financially. Like, no, it's your fault too, because you weren't involved, you weren't there, you weren't be noticed enough. And like people like say other things too, like, oh, what if your wife got a credit card and you didn't know? I'm like, that's your fault too, because you aren't paying close enough attention to your finances to understand that she's spending money somewhere else. Like, you know what I mean? So like if she goes buys new clothes or whatever, like if you're involved in your finances, you would obviously know that, see it in the bank account, see it in wherever, right? And so that's what I think, at least too. You're not involved in it. You got to be there. So I know I kind of went on a little side subject there with the spatial finances, but you know, really good video. Check it out. If you have any questions on it, disagreements, for sure, put them down there. We'll discuss it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I completely agree. And I'm actually happy that you went down that hole, because there's a few things that I want to touch on that you said that I want to clarify as well. So one thing is going to be the whole hobbies thing, right? Like if there's something that you love to do and it's the one thing that you love to do, like go ahead and do it. But guess what? Knowing your finances are going to allow you to do it better, right? More consistently. It's going to allow you to make sure that you continue this hobby and not be like, oh, you know what? This month I can't do it because I don't have enough cash. You know what I mean? I don't, like just giving the whole fishing, right? Like you were talking about. Or okay, I'll use another example, like me, right? I love to go dove hunting. So if I go dove hunting and I'm like, oh, you know what, man, I can't go this week or I can't go this weekend because I don't have cash for shells. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have cash for shells. Like what? Like, well, why not? Where is this money going? You know what I mean? And although it can be expensive to go do these certain hobbies, if you don't know your financial situation, it's going to be even more expensive. It's going to not allow you to do this, right? And it's going to entice you to pull money from somewhere else, funds from another thing that you should not. Like, for instance, oh, you know what? I'll just take a little bit of funds from my groceries. You know what I mean? It's all right. I'll just buy ramen this week or whatever. And it's like, why are you putting yourself in that situation? You know what I mean? So definitely enjoy yourself, but you have to know what you're spending on and so that you can enjoy yourself even more. You know what I mean? Being able to go out there fishing, dove hunting, whatever it is, and feel confident of like, you know what? I'm actually enjoying myself. Because that's the reason why you're doing it, right? Because you want to relieve stress, you want to feel comfortable, you want to kind of have out from your everyday, like 9 to 5, whatever it is. So the other thing as well is going to be what you said as far as, hey, you know what, if there's a situation like people say, hey, you don't know if this is going to happen this next year, whatever, that's absolutely correct as well. Like you have to know the difference between possibility and probability. Right. So anything's possible, right? But is it probable? Is this something like you legit have a reason like, hey, you know what? I need to be careful with this because this may happen. You know what I mean? Or is it something like, oh my God, I don't know if next week, all the waters are going to rise and this is going to be water world. Right. So just make sure that you understand the difference. That's a big point, and I'm so happy you brought that up. But it goes back into something that a book that Sal and I were actually reading recently. They talk the difference between reacting versus responding, right? And that's something that you definitely need to go ahead and understand. And actually, shout out to this book if y'all haven't read it. It's definitely great. Sal suggested it, and it's called The Masculine Manifesto, and it's by Ryan Mitchler. You have it? There it is. So yeah, guys, if y'all have a chance, read that book. It's a great book. It really is. We just finished it up, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a great choice. Like I said, Sal picked it out, and it was pretty good. But yeah, those are the biggest things, guys. Like really, with your financial situation. The last one, I would tell you, out of all of these things that we talked about, probably the last one is the most important, which is not caring. Like you have to care, guys. You have to want to do this. You have to want to level up, because as a man, I would tell you it's totally different than anything else. As a man, nobody's coming to save you. You know what I mean? You have to work for yourself. You have to make sure that you're contributing. And when you add different people, because like, for instance, I'm single, right? But you know what? If I go ahead and choose to get a girlfriend, a spouse, children, whatever it is, those people are now depending on me. And that's the point that Sal was bringing up. And I completely agree with him. Like when troubles happen, they're going to turn to you. They're not going to turn to anybody else. And guess what? Who are you going to turn to? No one. So you have to make sure that you have everything set up and that you're prepared so that you're able to go ahead and respond, not react. Read the book. It's a really, really good book.